But let's go ahead and introduce our guest. We do have Scott with us. Scott, go ahead and tell us who you are, what it is you do, and a little bit of your background.
All right. Thank you, Timothy, and welcome everyone. My name is Scott Hartman. I am Senior Director of National Community Services here at Boys Town. I began my career as a classroom teacher. I'm a graduate of Ball State University Teachers College, have a master's from National Louis University out of Wheaton, Illinois. I've been in direct care here at Boys Town, helping run the family home program. I've been an education trainer, so I've been all over the country in hundreds of schools and have met and presented to thousands of teachers, and am able to share some of that learning, hopefully with you today. I've also been a residential director of a large residential program outside of Chicago, and a youth safety auditor charged with looking at policies and practices and doing investigations where allegations of harm to youth are concerned. And looking forward to this conversation today on this important topic.
Thank you so much, Scott. And again, I love hearing your introduction every chance that I get, because it again just reaffirms to me the quality of people that we do have working here at Boys Town. And so first of all, just thank you. You do bring a lot to this discussion, and we're excited to get into it. Like I mentioned before, at the end of this, we will have some prize giveaways. Who gets those? Those will be individuals who do engage in chat. And so please, like I said, utilize that, and we'll be drawing names at the end. What we will be giving away is what I'm sporting here today is our Teach Love t-shirts. And this is our Teach Love initiative here at Boys Town. Why do we do that? Well, because first of all, it's an easy thing to get behind. We're a huge advocate in being kind and loving everyone. But why the teach part? And for us here at Boys Town, we do believe that a lot of the things that we as a community think come natural to adults and to children don't always come natural. And so there's an element of teaching that is always involved. And it's an element of personal responsibility to make sure that we do teach these things. And so that kind of goes right into what we want to talk about today. The discussion today is going to be proactively addressing school safety. And again, as a community, we think, man, that should just be a natural thing. But maybe it's not. So Scott, I want to pass it off to you. Talk to us a little bit about how do we go about here with the teaching part of it? And then maybe let's expand a little bit out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Boys Town currently is home to around 400 young people, both boys and girls from across the country from varied backgrounds. Many of them have come from impoverished backgrounds, have experienced lack of school success. Many of them are involved with the juvenile justice system. Many of them are experiencing mental health issues, substance abuse issues, have difficulty building relationships, have histories of self-harm, and many have had violent incidences in their past. And when you look at Boys Town, which was begun by Father Flanagan back in 1917, and Father Flanagan was revolutionary in that he welcomed young men of any race, any religion, and they lived together, they worked together, they went to school together, they played together, which was just unheard of in 1917. So we're very proud of our history. But you look at this square mile that Boys Town sits on outside of Omaha, and it is a safe place. 95% graduation rate, 85% leaving to go to less restrictive environments, 16 years later, doing better or as well as their peers after being at Boys Town. So how can that be? What makes that happen? And we liken it to what Timothy just said. We're intentional. We're intentional about what we teach. We're intentional about building relationships. When I first came to Boys Town, they said, you're going to be charged with doing two things. Now think of this as an educator. You're charged with doing two things. You're charged with teaching skills or your academic content and building relationships. That's how important relationships are. Building appropriate relationships are at Boys Town. So when we talk about school safety, that's a big topic. And it was intimidating to me at first when my colleagues asked me to speak to it, because it could mean anything from physical plant safety. You know, are your sidewalks clean? Are there unevenness, in your wheelchair ramps? There's personal health, young people coming with EpiPens to school, insulin, being allergic to foods that we might have in the cafeteria, natural disasters, fire drills, flooding, tornado drills. But for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to focus on that person to person, those physical acts of aggression, the bullying, the physical violence that can happen. I'm going to operate from the National Center for Safe and Supporting Learn Environments, which is run by American Institute for Research, and their definition of school safety. And that says, school safety is defined as schools and school-related activities where students are safe from violence, bullying, and harassment. Safe schools promote the protection of students from violence, exposure to weapons and threats, theft and bullying and harassment on school grounds and other emergencies. School safety is linked to improved student and school outcomes. We all know this as educators, but it's nice to know that research supports what we assume or what our gut's telling us. In particular, emotional and physical safety in school are related to academic performance. And at the same time, students who are victims of physical or emotional harassment are at risk for poor attendance, course failure, and school dropout. So for the purposes of this talk, let's focus on personal acts of aggression or violence. The most extreme act of violence that we as educators can face is school shootings. From January 1970 till mid-June of 22, there have been 2,050 shootings in schools, according to the Center of Homeland Defense and Security, who keeps track of these events. 678 fatalities in our schools. Since Columbine in 1999, 300,000 young people have experienced school shootings, were witnesses to it, or were in the building when they occurred. School shootings have happened in every state, so none of us are immune. And I know that's the extreme example, but let's look at what causes some of that aggression. When the Secret Service and the Department of Ed looked into, is there a way to profile those that commit school shootings? And there are disagreements about this, but most of the research says it's difficult to profile a behavior or a typical school shooter. One of the things that everyone seems to agree on in the literature is that school shooters have felt bullied, they felt persecuted, or they felt injured by others, and they were seeking retaliation or retribution. So think about that as educators. If that's why young people are committing acts of violence, that's why they're acting out, how important is it for us as educators to teach problem solving, to purposefully take time out of our day to teach problem solving, asking for help, disagreeing with adults, and how to build those appropriate relationships with their peers. What if we had made those connections to the school shooters that we've had in the past and taught those skills proactively? Alfred University did a study where they just asked students, why do young people bring weapons to school? The number one reason was retaliation, because they felt injured, and number two was that there's a history of bullying.
Wow. So I first of all, I want to just say I love that you address the big picture first, the big issue. And so I look forward to diving into that with you. There have been a couple things that have been put into the chat I just want to draw attention to. First of all, I want the attendees to have their chat open, because our driver behind the scenes, Mr. Jackson, will be putting in some of the resources that Scott is mentioning. Those will be dropped into the chat. So look out for Jackson Richling's name, and he'll have resources in there. So for instance, he just dropped the link for the National Center on Safe Supportive Learning Environments. So shout out to our attendees to keep an eye out from that. But Scott, thank you so much. And let's continue that thought of where we're headed and where you're going right there with these resources.
I also want to thank the commenter for mentioning restorative practices as well.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the pieces of research that fascinated me by Jillian Peterson and James Densley from the Violence Project is they actually interviewed young people who had planned and had a way to commit school violence, but chose not to at the last minute. And they state in every case, this was because an adult reached out and made a connection with them and gave them hope. And I thought that was particularly useful for us and powerful. So when you look at the literature, it's like, okay, so what do we do? What do I as an individual teacher do? I'm not in charge of policies and procedures. I'm not in charge of beefing up security. I don't have the budget or the authority to make physical plant changes. So what can I as a teacher do? And the literature is clear that positive school climates help reduce incidences of aggression and violence. And positive school climate includes factors that serve as conditions for learning that support physical and emotional safety, connections, support from educators, and engagement. And the National Center for Safe and Supportive Learning Environment says a positive school climate is critically related. The research is clear that it's critically related to school success. It can improve attendance, achievement, retention, and even rates of graduation. So what does that mean, school climate? What makes that up? Connectedness. Connectedness is the belief by students that we care about them, not just about their academics, but care about them as individuals. Students who feel connected to school are less likely to engage in risky, aggressive, violent behaviors. The National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent Health looked at 36,000 7th through 12th graders and found that connectedness was the strongest protective factor for youth to decrease substance abuse, school absenteeism, early sexual initiation, violence, and risk for unintentional injury. The strongest protective factor. So the research is telling us, our guts are telling us, our intuition is telling us, our experience is telling us that it's important to connect with young people. How do we do that? So I'm going to ask you all, what are some ways that you have found to connect with young people? What are some practices that you use in your environment that have been successful in making that connection and started to build that positive relationship with young people?
Such a great question. And again, looking at our chat, we do have a lot of people being active in there. And so thank you so much. Again, like I mentioned before, because of time, we may not have time to read everything, but it is good information for us and for all the attendees. So please, even if we don't have a chance to read yours out loud, somebody else is reading it and it's helpful.
Megan, and know their world, know about them.
Yeah.
Dee Dee, share that I care about them. Why are we as educators so afraid to say that sometimes? Sometimes we gear up for battle before our day. We put on the armor, and we don't want to appear, that we're letting our guard down. Just the opposite should be happening. Listening, thank you.
Yeah.
Listening. Community circles, very important. Class meetings. Use their name. Thank you, Suzanne.
I like that one.
Thank you, Jen. Sit with them. Don't take things personally. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So important. Aries, social skills teaching, building rapport, not breaking trust. And also, along with trust is showing them that you're going to be an irrational advocate on their behalf when you have nothing to gain by putting yourself out there. So let's talk about some other ways to build that. And one of the things that we are charged to do here at Boys Town is to be in the hallway between passing periods and to greet young people. And Jen, like you said, to call them by their name. So I had a friend in high school who came from a very small elementary school and was thrown into this huge high school where during his day, he saw no friendly face. He was bullied. He was physically bullied, verbally harassed. and had thoughts of suicide. And he shared that one of the things that prevented him from not going through with the suicide was a business instructor. He didn't have a business class. He never had this teacher in school, but somehow that business instructor knew his name. And as he would go from period to period, that business instructor would call him by his name and ask how his day was going. And he said, that teacher still to this day doesn't know that they probably prevented me from harming myself. That's how important this is. So we know that intuitively. We as good teachers know it's important to greet. But there were 3 researchers from the University of Minnesota that really took a deep dive into this, Cook, Fiat, and Renshaw. And they have concluded that positive greetings at the door produce significant improvements, not just in academic engaged time, but also in the reduction in disruptive behavior. And that's from the Journal of Positive Behavior Intervention. So we as good teachers know what good practices. It's nice to know that what we believe is backed by research. Be excited to see them. Students know intuitively what we're about. They know immediately after coming in our classroom whether we're going to be someone they like or not. Whether we're interested in them or not, know their names, know their likes, know their dislikes, know their passions, know their troubles. Another thing I see in the chats is teaching skills. Along with that is setting clear expectations, fair expectations, setting expectations that are reachable, and also high expectations. I had a gentleman in Colorado Springs tell me once that one of the most insidious forms of racism or discrimination is not expecting a lot out of every one of your students based on from where they come or how they look. And so making sure that we're setting high expectations for our young people. We have young people here at Boys Town who've experienced tremendous trauma, abuse by family members, physical, emotional, sexual abuse. We still set high expectations for them. Because we want them to succeed, because we love them, right? We practice procedures and rules proactively. We use reasons. I'm sorry, I can't read all of the chats. Thank you, by the way, for throwing your comments in there. But using reasons and making that cognitive connection, science tells us, is important. We use rationales here every day in our instruction at Boys Town. We praise kids for doing skills that are hard for them to do. They actually monitor us at Boys Town and make sure we're at least at a 4-to-1 positive to negative ratio. Some of our business research said that good managers do that as well. But we are much more positive with our young people, pointing out what they're doing well than we are in correcting, especially when that skill is tough or new. And we don't assume that our young people coming to us at Boys Town, even in high school, know the correct social skills or know what behaviors will help them be successful. Another activity when we're out working with schools across the country, we encourage schools to do is to do an activity where they take their class lists and they look at their students' names, and each teacher puts a dot by the student that they know something about. And then we look at those lists, and if there's any student that doesn't have anything by their name or has the fewest dots, we make a plan to go and we assign someone to connect with that young person. It's just a way to make sure that someone doesn't fall through the cracks. We connect with them in the morning. We ask what their goals for the day are. We might connect with them at the end of the day and ask how things went. But it's very important to make sure that every young person knows that there's an adult in the building that they can trust. We explicitly teach problem solving. We have a problem solving method. One of the things that Timothy will talk about at the end of this is our model that we use in the schools called well-managed schools, and teaching problem solving and social skills is all a big part of that. The model that we use here at Boys Town, I'm going to tell on myself a little bit. I was a really good teacher when I started my career in Indiana. And when I came to Boys Town, the behaviors that I was confronted with by the young people were very challenging. And I did not know how to be successful. And the people that I was charged with taking care of were not getting better. And so I asked for help, and Boys Town provided the training in the well-managed schools that allowed me to learn what would help these young people be successful. I was out east in Connecticut, and a teacher in a math class, junior high math class, told me a similar story. She was ready to resign at the end of the year. And after practicing the skills and techniques that the well-managed schools offers, she said it saved her career. Um, I, I loved these kids. I just didn't know what to do when they called me everything but my given name, when they threatened me physically, when they destroyed property, when they were involved in self-injurious activities. I had no place to go. I didn't have the words to say, and I didn't know how to practice self-control. What Boys Town helped through well-managed schools was it gave me all of those things. They gave me a way to manage myself. They gave me the words to say. They gave me the skills to teach. They gave me the proactive strategies that we're talking about now.
Yeah, I love that, Scott. And I want to focus in on something key that I think that you said that's important for us not to miss. Is you said that you asked for help. And I want to challenge everybody listening. And even if you, maybe someone comes to mind that you're like, hey, they should be on this webinar and they're not. But asking for help is huge. And I know that all of our schools, and especially if you're on here and you oversee a school, there are resources that every school has, and you provide the resources. And but sometimes it's also maybe a teacher that's struggling that says, well, who can I talk to? Or I don't know where to go for a resource. One of the things that we have here at Boys Town is a hotline that's open for everybody. And so if you are a new teacher that says, man, I've been doing all the trends, and I've been doing TikTok in my class, and I love these kids, and I'm year 1, year 2, year 3, and I'm not seeing changes. I'm not, reach out, and you can call us at the hotline. We'll drop it here in the chat, and we have access to every state and resources for you. So raising your hand and asking for help, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you, Scott, because that's what we're supposed to do.
Amen. I'm going to go a little quickly here because I'm concerned about the time. By the way, I'm loving the comments in the chat. Thank you. Learn the signs of self-harm. Have a plan of action when you identify those. Most districts have good plans for that. We need to, as educators, understand the signs of self-injurious behavior or suicide ideation, but we also need to have a plan when we do discover those. Respect the boundaries and protect yourself. Someone mentioned modeling. Megan, I think you mentioned the importance of modeling. Always, always, always. Kids do not take you seriously if they don't see you practicing what you preach. We here at Boys Town signed a boundaries agreement that we as professionals know that these young people are to be respected, that we don't build inappropriate relationships with young people, and that we report if we suspect any of that is occurring. So I think it's important to role model appropriate relationships and also protect yourselves by respecting boundaries. Make connections when they present themselves. I happen to be a Bengals fan. When I saw a young person who was tough to reach with the Bengals sweatshirt on, we started talking about the Bengals and what's in their future, and made that connection. Again, teaching social emotional skills, using effective classroom management and teaching methods, which the well-managed schools helped me learn. Respond to inappropriate behavior versus react to that, and have a plan for de-escalation. And when you're in the midst of really difficult or challenging behavior and you're starting to use consequences, self-reflect. Am I doing this because I want the student to be successful, Or am I doing this to make my life easier? That will keep us from being punitive, punishing, or needlessly negative. Am I doing this because I love this young person and I want them to be successful away from me? Or am I doing it just to shut it down and get compliance? Am I taking the time necessary to affect change, or do I want a quick fix? Do I really love this student and want them to succeed? And part of that is, am I able to forgive this student for their past disruptive behaviors, the horrible things they said, the destruction that occurred in my classroom, to continue to treat them each day fairly and with respect? That's difficult. We got to love our students, especially the ones who are hard to love, especially the ones that are hard to love. And by love, I think we all understand what I'm talking about is that self-sacrifice, that advocacy. Father Flanagan said there's nothing the matter with our growing young people that love, proper training, and guidance will not remedy. We as educators do all three of those. We love, we give them the proper training and the guidance. And the last two go much better if the first one is in place, right? I do not believe, he said, that a child can be reformed by lock and key and bars, or that fear can ever develop a child's character. It costs so little to teach a child to love and so much to teach him to hate, Father Flanagan said. And he is famous for saying, I have yet to find a single young person who wants to be bad. School leaders provide training in social-emotional learning, classroom management practices to your teachers. Survey, ask the kids how they're being treated. So important. The Department of Ed has a climate survey out there that everyone has access to that asks young people how they're being treated. We at Boys Town get rated, and our future employment is contingent upon what kids say about their treatment. How fair is Mr. Hartman? Is Mr. Hartman pleasant? Is Mr. Hartman teaching me anything? Is Mr. Hartman a good role model? We ask our young people all the time. So I would ask, I do advocate that schools ask your kids. I had a teacher at my daughter's school that said bullying doesn't happen here. I said, you don't get to say that. Only kids get to answer that question. Provide a safe and anonymous place to tell. The Secret Service's research said most incidents of school violence, other people knew about the attacker's idea. So if you have an anonymous, safe place for kids to report, that could help prevent some of that. Here in Nebraska, we use Safe to Help Nebraska. In Colorado, they have Safe to Tell, and many other states have similar places for young people to go when they suspect that something's up. It's interesting that 80% of our calls to Safe to Help Nebraska deal with mental health issues and not school violence issues. So it's a great service. Provide educators with clear policies, engage families, all of the stuff that we know to be true. I see that I'm running out of time. I think one of the most important things we as educators can do is to do that self-reflection. Why did I get into this business? Is it worth it? Are they worth it? The day it came true for me was a young man who had hurt lots of people, we were told, who was extremely violent, and we were told that if he gave us any indication that we were in danger, that they would remove him from Boys Town and send him back home, where he would end up going to lockup. And this is an example from our residential program, but I think it applies to the schools. And this young man came home from school one day, and we asked how his day went. And he swore at us, and he threatened my wife, and he threatened my 3-month-old baby, and he threatened me. And I was tempted to pick up the phone and have his placement ended at Boys Town because we knew that he had a violent history. But before I did that, you ask yourself as teachers, why did I get into this business? And so I didn't pick up the phone, and I started using the skills that Boys Town taught us to use for de-escalation. He proceeded to tear apart the home, burn holes in the carpeting by smoking in our home, damaged the television, pulled the game system out of the wall, went after the other young men in the home with a broken pool cue till we got them to safety. And he engaged in this behavior for hours. The next day, he was able to successfully go to school and have a good day. When he came home from school, we asked him how his day was. And this 16-year-old gang member who had hurt lots of people broke down and said, "Why are you talking to me like a human being? Everything I said and did yesterday, and you're still talking to me like I'm a human being." And what became clear to me in that conversation was that this young man did not think he was worthy of love or respect. We did forgive him and get past those behaviors. Now, he did not get away with those behaviors. He had a lot of consequences. He had a lot of things to fix, but he was able to, he was released from probation after a year, and he decided to stay at Boys Town another year because he knew this is where he needed to be. And I go back to that day. Had I ended that young man's placement at Boys Town and sent him to lockup in Colorado, where would he be? Today, he's married. He has 3 wonderful children. He has an awesome job. And he wrote us a 5-page letter and sent pictures of his family, thanking us for that day. Now, this is nothing unusual. This is not anything my wife and I did that's any different than you all as educators do on a daily basis. We all have our young people that give us challenges. But I go back to that day where I had to make a decision. Do I make this a quick fix? Do I pick up the phone? Do I send them to the office? Do I get them out of my hair? Or do I take the time and energy and the pain, let's be honest, the pain necessary to work with them and let them know we are not giving up on you. Throw whatever you want at us. Swear, threaten, destroy. We will not give up on you. And it was then that I think he realized I am worthy of love and respect. I am a good kid. I don't have to behave this way. I didn't come upon that naturally. I had to practice, and the program at Boys Town helped me do that. Saved my career as an educator. Timothy, I think I need to be quiet.
Scott, no, this was so good. And first of all, I love that story every time I hear it, just because when I watch you and I hear that story, to me, it truly is the catalyst of who you've become over the years here at Boys Town. And so I absolutely love that story. Scott, I know that you have a list of resources that you want to give out to everybody. What we're going to do is we're going to put those resources in the chat, and people can, individuals can look at those themselves and do the research. You've given us a lot. Let's, again, as we try to be cognizant of everyone's time, let's as I don't even know how you wrap this up, except let's focus a little bit on what is a resource that we have here at Boys Town that people can engage in. And then I think when you're done talking about that, we're going to show a video about this resource. So let's wrap this up with that, and we'll go from there.
First of all, thanks, Stacy. You're absolutely right. Not taking behaviors personally is a tough thing to do, but it's critical when you're dealing with that. So thank you for making that comment. Clifford, thank you as well. So boystowntraining.org is a resource that's just full of free lesson plans, webinars, information. You can chat with one of our trainers. It's full of resources for educators that emphasizes some of these things that you're sharing today and that we're talking about today. Timothy, I'll let you talk about well-managed schools and what's going to happen with the future of that.
Awesome. All right. I love it. Just quickly. So we are at the end here, but don't go away. So again, at the end of the conversation, like I mentioned, we are going to go through the chat, which was absolutely busy during the entire time. So thank you to everyone, and we'll pull some winners. But we have gotten to the part of the webinar that honestly I've been waiting for really since they hired me almost a year ago. So it'll be a year next month, which I can't believe. And this is the day that I finally get to talk about it. And that is taking our well-managed schools that we've been taking across the nation for over 30 years and listening to what teachers are asking for. How do we get this in a personal format that I can personally use, or I can as a school leader, I can disseminate to my teachers. And so that's what we're going to show today. So we have a little video that we're going to play, and then I'll talk a little bit more at the end of that.
Families and community members with Boys Town experts. We are here to help you. Our new interactive online training is just one piece of this Lift Together initiative. In this new program, you'll receive simple lectures such as this.
Let's talk about prevention, which is any action taken to reduce or eliminate anticipated problem behavior. The goal of prevention in schools is to guide behavior in a positive direction by increasing predictability, lessening confusion, and curtailing chaos. Regardless of your position within the school, you can play a part in prevention.
You'll have real-life scenarios to watch like these.
I'm not finished.
Awesome, thank you. Great job, Sune. You did a great job using complete sentences. Thank you.
Hey, guys. It looks like you're having a really good time over here, but you know what? You're throwing food, you've got lettuce all over the table, your trays are kind of a mess. Remember our cafeteria expectations? We just want to keep food on our tray and just eat quietly, chew with our mouths closed, keep the volume down. Do you remember all those expectations?
Yes.
Okay. And you know what? When we can do that, you get your lunch eaten and then you can head outside. Okay, but instead, today, we're going to have to spend some time. Your consequence is going to be we're going to have to spend some time cleaning up this table.
There are connected physical materials, such as this learning journal. There will be interactive quizzes and polls to ensure learning comprehension. On-demand training lets you guide your learning. Access the training and classroom tools when it's convenient for you. Hands-on resources and classroom activities enable you to implement the skill you acquire immediately. Revisit whenever you need a refresher.
You can honor others by listening to them.
Taking the time to train will give you more time to teach. Come lift with us by learning more about our amazing program that uses common language and training methods to provide positive, measurable improvement. Working together, we can improve our schools, our family relationships, and our communities. We invite you to lift with Boys Town. Start today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for showing that. And first of all, that video just got me all excited and pumped up again. What an amazing offering. So what exactly is Lift and the Digital Well Managed? Well, it's a self-paced online training platform for well-managed schools that's going to launch Q1 of this year. So please stay tuned. Now, again, this newly updated online training will provide you and your faculty with the opportunity to assess the tools, proven techniques at times most convenient for them. It's not just a digital, it is a living, breathing digital where you're going to be able to see people that are not everyone there was a paid actor. We have our staff members that you'll see, the behind the scenes people. A lot of you have had our training at your schools, and maybe you've met a couple of our trainers, but now you get to see some of the faces that are behind it, such as Scott and Susan and many others. And so we're excited to deliver this. Well-managed schools will be the first of many programs launched on our new on-demand program under the umbrella of Lift, because we really do believe that it's not just any one entity. It takes all of it, the family, the school, and the community, to lift our students together. And so I want to end this by, first of all, saying thank you to all of our attendees, everybody who joined, was active in chat, and stayed through the end.
It's motivating to read your comments. Thank you so much.
Yes, this was great. We encourage everyone to join us again next month, and we will have another wonderful discussion. So Scott, God bless, And
Thank
we
you.
will talk to everyone later.